I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. We've all watched politicians who clearly don't know what they're doing and thought, shouldn't there be a test for this? But the moment we start deciding who's qualified enough to run for the office, we're attacking the heart of democracy itself. I'm the first speaker from the opposition team, which we refuse the political candidates to pass a political competency test in order to run for the office. So, ladies and gentlemen, the government said that political competency tests are necessary for the government to act on its obligation, which from the social contract, which people rely on them and pick politicians who can run the society. The real society contract, ladies and gentlemen. We choose our leader, not some task committee. I'll take the nurse who knows what's broken over the policy wrong with the perfect scores. When bureaucrats decide who's qualified, democracy is already dead. The second one is that the government said that we can protect societal stability where they could actualize the principle of social contract too, where at least people's rights can be fulfilled. Ladies and gentlemen, you want instability? Tell working people they're too dumb to represent themselves. These tests will be biased, and real stability comes from people feeling hurt, not locked out. They want democracy to be less democratic for our own good. Literacy tests were reasonable too. This always become weapons of exclusion. The society contact isn't about perfect politicians. It's about people keeping power. So the third one is that the government says that the authorities inclined to do a monopoly, which actually, ladies and gentlemen, monopoly doesn't happen because of the system. It's because of the mentality of the human itself. It happens because of the corruption, for example, or nepotism, for example, and lots of aspects. Rather than change the whole system, it's better if we try to aware for the mentality first. The last one is that the government says that the goal is to keep the accountability from the politician. Ladies and gentlemen, if the human or the society already have a high awareness because of this case, the accountability from the politician staff, it will increase also. So right now the democracy is beautifully messy. Anyone who meets the basic requirement can throw their hat in the ring. Sure, some candidates know more than others, but that's always been true. So there are some people who matter most in this conversation. Which the first one is the everyday voters who've been choosing their leader for generations without needing anyone to screen their option first. The second one is the potential candidates from all walks of life. We might have amazing ideas but don't necessarily test well. The second one is that the communities that deserve representatives who actually understand their struggle, not just textbook theories. And the last one is that the democracy itself. This grand experiment that survived this long precisely because it's open to everyone. So we need to protect democracy fundamental promises that any citizen can aspire to lead and any citizen can choose who leads them. The goal isn't perfect leaders. It's preserving the right of people to make their own choice even if we don't always agree with them. So this isn't some abstract debate. Around the world, we're seeing a democracy under attack. Authoritarian leaders are finding new ways to limit who can participate in politics. We can't hand that them another tool by saying, well, actually, maybe not everyone should be allowed to run the office. The timing couldn't be worse for undermining democratic participation. Rather than we do a political competency test like law, economic, or sociology, we have a better alternative, which are the first one is that the testing approach, like set up a standardized test on constitutional knowledge and policy basis, pass the test, get on the ballot. And then the second one is that the real world approach. Rather than making politicians pass some tests to run for the office, let's be honest, government isn't just about knowing textbook economics or law or even sociology. Leaders juggle budget crisis, health emergencies, and angry communities all at once. They need problem-solving skills and a judgment under the pressure. We already have the ultimate competency test, which is running the office. Camping shows us that how candidates actually think, handle pressure, and connect with real people. Why trade that for some written exams that can measure what leadership really takes? So, ladies and gentlemen, I will split my argument into three point of view, which the first one is that the political point of view, which is the second one is the social, and the third one is the legal point of view. I will start from the political reality, which is, look, we all want smart leaders, but democracy has never been about finding the smartest person in the room. It's about finding someone who represents us. Some of our greatest leaders come from humble backgrounds and learn on the jobs. They brought common sense, life experience, and a deep understanding of their communities that no test could measure. When we start requiring tests, we're essentially saying that book learning matters more than real world experience. That knowing constitutional law is more important than understanding what it's like to struggle with healthcare costs or job loss. We risk creating a political class of everyone who can pass tests, but have never lived in lives of the people they're supposed to represent. And let's be honest, political parties already do a plenty of screening, which they support candidates they think they can win and govern effectively. Voters get to see candidates debate, give speech, and explain their position. We have months of campaigning where competency gets tested in real time. Adding another layer just gives more power to whoever design on the task. The second one is the social justice issue, which here where this gets really troubling. Throughout history, competency tests have been used to keep ascertaining people out of power. They sound natural and fair, but they never are. Who's going to write this test? Probably people who've been to elite universities, who think in certain ways, or who value certain kinds of knowledge over others. What about the single mother who's been fighting for better schools in her community for years but doesn't know the technical details of federal education policy? What about the small business owner who understands economic from the background up but might not a question about macroeconomic theory? What about the candidates whose first language isn't English, or who learn about governance through activism rather than textbook? This test would systematically exclude people whose knowledge come from living life rather than studying it. They'd favor candidates who are good at taking tests over candidates who are good at solving real problems. That's not just unfair, it's dangerous for the democracy itself. So the third argument is the legal nightmare. The Constitution sets basic qualification for office: age, citizenship, and residency. Competency isn't mentioned for a reason. The founder knew that adding qualifications beyond the basic gives someone dangerous power over who get to participate in democracy. We've tried this before. Literacy tests and pulp taxes were all reasonable, a requirement that became tools of exclusion. This Supreme Court stuck them down because barrier of democracy participation always get misused. Who writes this test? Who stops the party in power from designing them favor their ideology? Once we say some citizens are more qualified rather than other to participate in democracy, where does it end? Test for the voter next? So the government team has established all these points convincingly, which is the first one is that the crisis exists. That incompetent politicians are causing serious widespread harm that justify restricting democracy participation. Second one is that task work. The competency task would actually identify better leader and improve governance outcomes. The third one is that fair implementation. That such tasks can be designed, administered, and maintained without bias, corruption, and discrimination. Fourth one is that no better alternative. That less restrictive measures like photo education, media security, and party fighting cannot solve the problem. The last one is that practically viable. That the system could work in real world without becoming a tool of politician manipulation. Democracy isn't supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be open, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, sometimes we elect people who aren't as prepared as we'd like, but that's the price of freedom. The moment we start saying that some citizens are too ignorant to run the office, we're saying some citizens are too ignorant to choose their own leader, and that's not democracy anymore.